Hello everyone, Ben Dearman, bendearman.net, KDR Fitness. Hey, I wanted to do something, I actually wanted to write about this, but I didn't have the energy to write about it today, so I figured I'd commandeer somebody to videotape my thoughts. So this is the aftermath of the Biggest Loser post. And there's obviously been a gigantic amount of talk. It'd be interesting to see how many people read that article. First of all, that's not news. Just because it came up in your Facebook feed doesn't mean that it's news. Most of the stuff in the article, probably 100% in it, maybe more. I guess it can't be more than 100%, but it's more than most of it is already stuff that we knew. It just so happens that, somebody decided to do this really big expose on it. Now, I didn't read all of the hyperlinks, but probably nothing in there is something that you wouldn't find in a master's nutrition textbook, or that you wouldn't find probably in books that were written maybe even 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. So there's no cause for any mass hysteria. Having said that, obviously there's a lot of mass hysteria about the article. There's a couple, I saved some posts that I thought were very interesting. This is from one of our members. These are all from our members. She is right, and this is in response to Biggest Loser contestants gain their weight back, and this is an article, refuse to regain. Newsflash, people who lose weight gain it all back. That's not true. So one of the members said she is right, I am maintaining a 70-pound weight loss for about 3 years. And when I read this New York Times article the other day, I was plunged into despair. I know because it's been measured. My metabolism is not what it should be. And I have not managed to get to the weight I would really like. But hey, I'm a lot better off than I was, and so are most of these Biggest Losers, despite the fact that they have gained some of the weight back. Okay, so measuring metabolism. It's very difficult to measure metabolism, and your metabolism is going to change on a day-to-day basis. Not to mention the fact that it's just a pain in the ass to measure metabolism. Don't worry about measuring metabolism. Worry about getting your meals in. Worry about making it to the gym. Don't worry about what your metabolism is doing, if it's damaged or off, or whatever the case may be, because ultimately you can't control that. So it's worrying about something. It's like driving your car and worrying about getting hit by a meteor or meteorite. I don't know which one comes to Earth, but it's kind of ridiculous. If you're going to get hit by a falling rock from outer space, you're going to get hit by a falling rock from outer space. So to worry about your metabolism when you really can't necessarily affect it, except for small amounts with food, but very large amounts with activity. So, get some more activity in. If your metabolism is depressed, then the easiest way to bring that metabolism up is through an increase in activity. So that was one thing. There was another one. Somebody had said the struggle is real. The struggle is definitely real. It is always harder to... Well, that's not true. I was going to say it's harder to keep the weight off than it is to lose the weight, but that's not necessarily true. It's harder to gain weight. It's harder to gain lean body mass than it is to keep weight off or to lose weight. I think to keep weight off and to lose weight, it's the same. It's equal. It's the same amount of effort, but you have to switch your effort around. And there was something that I had said on my Facebook page about what did I say? Basically, it was about the habits that the Biggest Losers didn't indoctrinate into their life. If you don't have those habits, if you don't have eat 4 meals a day, drink water, have vegetable at every meal, have a source of fat at every meal, have protein, don't binge, etc., etc. If you don't have those habits in place, well, of course you're not going to keep the weight off, right? We see it all the time. If somebody goes to, they lose 20 or 30 pounds in order to get a gastric bypass surgery, they get the gastric bypass surgery, and it's one of 3 surgeries that they get, right? Because they just put the weight back on, they eat past the staples, or they eat past the band, or whatever the case may be. Well, it's because, being overweight is a psychological... to a certain point, is a psychological issue, meaning that at some point in your life you had some really shitty times go down and you looked at food as a way to make yourself feel better. Right? I'm not saying that's for everybody, but that's a lot of times what we see when we sit down and we talk to people. and we'll get the story behind, like, well, why are you overweight? You know, why haven't you lost weight in the past? And then they get into this big long thing, right? Well, you know, you're not just going to lose the weight and then all of a sudden fix those problems or fix those issues that came up that made you look at food in the first place as a way to get out. So you have to have the habits. You have to have the habits in place. I'm a huge anti, GI surgery, any kind of like surgery that affects your stomach. We really don't like that because we haven't really seen a lot of good success with it in our arena. So the struggle is real, and then we have a private Facebook for just our members that none of you get to see unless you're a member. And this was posted in our private one. My thoughts on the article Jamie Crow posted. I have been a yo-yo dieter all my life. Okay, first of all, the more you are actually, legitimately, you are actually better off if you do not yo-yo diet at all. You are better off to try and lose weight once. And that's it. Every time that you try and lose weight, you end up making it harder. Whether you screw up your metabolism or whether you do this to your hormones and this to leptin and blah, blah, all of that's irrelevant. You end up making it harder, basically. I do not buy any bread, which every once in a while I still really crave it, but I know if I buy a loaf, it will be gone in a couple days. Don't buy it. I have a sweet potato once in a while, but I stay clear of any pasta or other kinds of simple carbs. That in and of itself might be why the loaf of bread is gone in a couple days, because you're depriving yourself of carbohydrates, okay? If you're trying to be healthy, you really shouldn't be depriving yourself of anything. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to deprive yourself of some things. But if you're trying to be healthy, then there should be nothing that you really deprive yourself of. You should have, the Hawaiian king rolls or whatever, the loaf of bread, whatever it may be. Actually, I'm a little paranoid about it. I'm a binger at heart, and occasionally I still do. Everybody is a binger. Everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. I had an aneurysm a little bit the other week because I had seen something on television that I actually, we have kind of like the direct TV where you can rewind it, and I watched it 7 times, and it was an ad for binge eating disorder, and it was classified as somebody who binges more than once a month. Are you fucking kidding me? Excuse my language. Somebody who binges more than once a month now can go to, a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't really understand the difference in the two of them, but they can go and they can talk to somebody, and their insurance pays for them because they binge more than once a month. I binge on a weekly basis. Like, I don't think that's a big deal. I just don't see a problem with it, right? As long as if you're like, binging is just something that you do. My camera girl is making me look weird, so now it makes me feel like I said something that maybe I shouldn't have said. Binging is something that you do. Binging is not who you are, right? So, like, you have fat, you are not fat, okay? So if somebody says, well, I'm a binge eater, okay, well then that's fine. If you want to identify yourself as that, you can be a binge eater and have a 6-pack and be 10% body fat as a dude, or be 18% body fat as a chick and be a binge eater, right? So binge eating doesn't necessarily have anything to do with results. It's just something that, like, we do, man. Food tastes good. It's not a big deal to be a binge eater. Now, having said that, if you're a binge eater every day and you feel guilty about it, or it affects how you look at your progress or your results, well, geez, I'm not getting these results because I'm eating every day and I'm binging, then stop doing that. But you don't need me to tell you that. That's pretty obvious, really. If you're binging and you're not happy, don't do it. So let me get back to this. Okay. I know that exercising, which I had never done in my life, or any other physical activity, that's fantastic. Because in order to lose weight, the people that we see lose weight the fastest and are the most successful are people that do things that they've never done before. So if you're a runner, stop running and start sprinting. Or if you're a swimmer, stop swimming and go and do some strongman competition, right? Or do a kettlebell competition or whatever. If weight loss is really what you want to pursue, then you should be doing things that you are not used to doing. And I'm going to talk about that, not today, but some other time. Has deterred me from driving into the For You Golf ice cream place. Unfortunately, it still doesn't stop me from eating too much of one thing. The only way I can do that is to not buy it. True. The food items are good for me, I just can't stop until it's gone. Okay, maybe you're not eating enough. Maybe that's why you can't stop until it's gone. I don't like getting on the scale every week, which is why I only do it once a month. Fine, don't do it. You don't have to get on the scale. The best way to measure your progress is through clothing size. We use the scale because it does allow us a little bit of scientific rationale for stuff that we do, but ultimately it's how do you feel, how do you look, how are your clothes fitting. That's the number one thing. So there was also some talk about leptin, because in the article it talks about leptin. So leptin is one of the main hormones. Okay, there's a couple, but it's one of the main hormones that is responsible for telling you to basically stop eating. And what happens is as your weight goes down and as your calories go down, then your body's ability to respond to leptin starts to get a little bit screwed up, right? So you start to get some leptin resistance. Just like insulin resistance, it just means that there's essentially your body's not responding very well to it. I'm not going to get into all the science and stuff like that. Corvalin, you can, if you want to get into that, you can bust it out in some kind of video blog or something. So the thing with leptin is it's relatively easy to bring it back up, assuming that you haven't totally totally smashed your levels down for a very long time, meaning super low calories or super low body fat for long periods of time. And basically, you just give yourself a refeed. You give yourself a binge. So maybe once a week, and when I say a binge, it's not something that you eat until the point where you're, totally bloated. And you might not need a binge, because if you find yourself responding very well to foods and say, hey, you know what, I'm not really hungry anymore, okay, then you're probably not leptin resistant. You probably don't have an issue with leptin, okay? Generally, leptin resistant is very obvious because you'll see somebody chow down on 3,000 calories and 6 pounds of food, right? Our stomachs they're not meant to hold 6 pounds of food. So that's a clear indication that that person's leptin signals are very wonky and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's my medical term right there, scientific term. So don't worry about the leptin resistant. I think that when you start to really get into weight loss and you're like, man, I really want to lose weight, or I really want to get strong, or I really want to move better, or I really want to eat better, then you start to dive down these rabbit holes of information, and then you come into the curse of knowledge. So it's the more that you know, the more you kind of question it, the more you want to know. And so then you start learning about all these really obscure things like leptin resistance and metabolism being screwed up from being very obese and then dropping down. Don't worry about that stuff, right? Just focus on the stuff that you need to do in order to be happy and in order to get the weight that you want to get or the body composition that you want to get. Don't worry about any of that shit. So as far as the New York Times, was it New York Times? Yeah, okay. New York Times article goes, none of that stuff is new information. None of that stuff is groundbreaking. Is it New York Times? You look at it, yeah, are you sure? The Biggest Loser article. None of that stuff should be even on any of your radars. The only thing that should be on your radar is, eating good food, having the occasional binge every once in a while. Don't worry, it's not that big of a deal. And making sure that exercise and activity is really kind of the foundation of your life. So those are my thoughts. Ben Dearman, bendearman.net, kdrfitness.com. Thanks for watching.